It is episode 4 of Colonies Builder Spotlight. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm not too bad, not too bad. Thank you very much. So just before we start, as always, Colonies Builder Spotlight follows the journey of a community member building a DAO from scratch. Lisa, you are here telling us about your journey of building a DAO, PictureBookDAO, from scratch. You started about 6 weeks ago, I think. And today's episode is going to be about what you've been doing and how you're getting on and where you are in that process. So anyone watching this for the first time, if you're interested in DAOs in general, go back to the first episode. This is super interesting. Get involved. Or if anyone wants to contribute to your DAO, Lisa, PictureBookDAO, keep watching. All right, let's dive in. So we normally kick things off with the usual question of what have you been working on? Because we spoke 2 weeks ago, and I'm sure you got a lot of things done. So let's talk about that.
Well, it never feels like I've gotten as much done as I would have liked to, but I've mostly focused on just making sure that the illustrations are getting done. So half of the book is illustrated. It's not finished quality. It's not colored in yet. I don't know if we'll have budget to have it colored in, but that's not, the point of the DAO. We can always come back and do that stuff later. But hopefully the book will be like laid out and ready to go by next week. But who knows? Anything can happen. The other thing I've mostly been focusing my own time on is thinking about the tokenomics, the DAO structure, kind of researching other DAOs, what available content there is that's out there about this topic, and coming to a conclusion about how I'd like to structure it, at least initially, just as a starting off point. So I'll talk more about that, in a little bit.
Nice. Okay, so let's start with the illustrations. You said they're sort of almost done. Last week you told us about the fact that the book is completely written now. So I'm assuming you are just letting the illustrator sort of get on with it, right? Because there's not a lot of input that you can have during this period, or are you periodically reviewing illustrations as you go along?
I am reviewing illustrations. As I mentioned in a previous episode, I'm working with, in a very Web3 fashion, an illustrator that I don't have, I didn't interview her. I don't have her resume. She just was recommended. She doesn't speak English, so it's all through a translation app. And initially my plan was, when you're working with someone who there might be some just literally like translation app mistranslations, not even like she's translating. It's purely just like copy and paste, see what comes out. There's always like misunderstandings. So my initial plan was to write out what I want depicted on each page, but I just didn't have the time for that. I got a sense that she was pretty capable, so I just said, why not? Let's just try it out. I told her, why don't you just draw what you think should go on the page based off the translated text of what's going to be on the book. And then she's been doing a great job, but there's sometimes, she has questions like, oh, okay, what do you want to do with this? Definitely the pages where we're trying to explain how crypto works in a very high level, children understandable level. It's a bit harder to do the illustrations than the story elements, but I'm really pleased with how it works out. I want to make sure her name is on the book as illustrated by, because I think she deserves this.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, that's really good to hear. I'm really glad to hear you are pleased with how it's going, because I think if you got to this point and you realize that perhaps it's that she's not the right person, like, what do you do then? You almost have to get illustrations done from scratch, because otherwise you can't just replace it with someone else, because then the first half of the book will have different style.
For anyone watching this who wants to work with either DAO members on like a contract or like just, like a one-off basis, the reason why, trying to run this down has made me understand more like why companies do things in what's seemingly like not efficient ways. It's because you interview someone to like make sure that when you've given them the job, they'll actually be able to do it well. And with this, obviously, we're not interviewing people and we don't really have the resources to figure out, like, you're using heuristics. when you're interviewing, you're trying to find heuristics to see if someone will do the job. So what I would recommend to people is, and what I did this time, and I think I also got very lucky, because sometimes you can do all the right things and you just stuff just happens that you couldn't have predicted, and then you just gotta deal with it. But in this case, it's always good to structure it initially as a project and to try to give them tasks, pay them for these tasks, but give them tasks that demonstrate the ability to do the job. So like interviewing someone like, oh, can you draw? Like, no one's going to say no, right? Or like, it's not really a good heuristic. Seeing their other work is not a good heuristic. So I said, hey, I'm looking, here's some examples of types of illustrations I like. I showed her like a picture book that I saw at Barnes & Noble. It was cute. And I also said, hey, I'm looking for, illustration. Here's like what's your hourly rate? Can you spend 1 hour drawing a cat that is somewhat anthropomorphic, and just don't color it in, just like sketch it out. And then she came back with 2 options and they were both cute. And I was like, that's great. And then I was like, okay, can you do a scene? And I gave her what I thought would be the most complex scene, which was explaining the decentralization and an anonymized network of, and I gave her like kind of how I imagined it would work. But I also wanted to see if she could make something out of a vague, not totally vague, but like not like super detailed description, kind of complex, kind of abstract. She asked great questions. She came back with something that was great that we're actually going to use in the book. So, and then I was like, okay, like here's like the next 5 images. Here's like 3 of them that I like scoped out, and here's like 2 that I'm not really sure. Like, what do you think you should draw there? And she was like, how about I draw like this thing? And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. I also have like check-ins. I'm like, okay, bill me every 10 hours. And so that you haven't like done the whole thing, I haven't heard from you in like a month, and then we get the end result and it's like not at all what you want. That would be horrible. So
last week you mentioned that the layout of a children's book is actually quite complex, and there's like a system behind it. Have you worked that out a little bit more? Are you sure about the placement of the words and the sketches or the illustrations now?
No. But what I decided to do was have the pictures drawn in 1-to-1 ratio, like as a square, right. Expecting that I can crop out things if necessary. And then also I think it could be feasible to have, instead of like full page bleed images, I don't like old-timey children's books, like kind of like the vintage ones from the early 20th centuries. There would be text and then like a little image, because they had to like lithograph, like stamp those. They weren't like printing full page. So it would be like white space, and then there'd be like a little image that kind of like dissipates into the white space. So that might be the way nice. We do that. And then I'm actually looking for, I initially was planning on learning how to do the layout and then like doing it myself, but I've become very busy. So I'm actually looking for someone who has experience working with Amazon's publishing system to like come and lay out the book for like real money. Because I would ask you to like lay out 1 page. I probably would need to ask them a little bit about like their background, just because I would want someone who's like familiar with either Amazon or another, probably Amazon's publishing system, just because it's the easiest place to start out with. And it's like 32 pages.
There is already another opportunity for contributors to come and join the DAO and get paid, right? And be part of this DAO. So that's awesome to hear. We'll talk a little bit later about other opportunities if there are any. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about the research that you've done around structuring the DAO, governance, tokenomics. Those are very big, deep subjects. So what have you come across? What are your learnings, and like what are you implementing?
First of all, to be really honest, I don't think I've done like a thorough job. I've tried to do as much as possible, which is never as much as I think it ought to be. So I want to say that, because if you're watching this, I don't feel like you have to like know everything. I'm just I kind of know some stuff. I'm just hoping for the best and to learn as I make mistakes. So that being said, that's like a disclaimer. Like I don't know that much about what is all that is out there. But from what I've seen, one thing that really struck me was, I forgot the name, but one article where it was written from the perspective of someone who evaluates tokens for whether or not they're worth like buying. It's very much like a business evaluation. So it's, I think first and foremost, this needs to be a business. So so that helped me kind of think of it as, let me just not think about this in terms of like DAOs or Web3, but like if this, because like the concept of like a collectivist business, like a co-op, has been around, for centuries. So it's just that the technology today allows us to implement that on a bigger scale, but the underlying structure of how do you organize either the capital or the time of a group of people has sort of been around. So I've also done like a little bit of research on this for other reasons. But that being said, one thing that was clear to me from the type form, which by the way will be now closed because we're not doing anymore. That's over. So most of the form results, people were saying that they wanted financial returns as being part of the DAO. So I think that's very important because governance is important to a certain extent, but people like, it's not a sustainable model for all DAOs. For example, like if you're for the future, like then you just become like a volunteer. You're just doing a job for free. Like voting is sometimes treated as if it's like a value in and of itself, and it is, but like, why do I care? Like, why should I care? Like, why should I take my time to vote if it doesn't like really impact me? So the financial piece is really important, but it's also tough because there's also like questions about the running. I don't want to run afoul of the SEC, and like, does it become like, at which point does it become like a security? I don't know. And I think right now we're in like the wild west of this, where the government has not like set down like, this is okay, this is not okay. But it's just kind of good to keep that in mind. And it's also good to balance between, at the end of the day, there are people who are creating the content, and then there are people who have joined, there are people who have created the content, they're contributors. There are people who contribute by providing their feedback, maybe their marketing, they're like letting other people know. Those people should also be compensated. And then there are people who are contribute purely by capital because they've purchased the NFT or the token or something. And that needs to be balanced well. Those are all things I've been thinking about. And I don't have like a clear solution to it, but I do have a bare bones structure I think I'm going to try to do just as the experiment with this, because there are a lot of ways you could structure a publishing DAO. But at the end of the day, this is just an experiment. And I think the high level overview is to think about it the way a co-op. Imagine you're like, we're all villagers in the story or something, we're like 19th century, like we live in a village, and there's like something that we want to do. Maybe we're like, hey, we'd really like, to put a real roof on our village school or whatever. But like, I can't afford to do that on my own. Like our options are either like we go to like the local squire and be like, hey, will you fund this? Or like maybe we can like all come together, pool our time and resources to do something together that's for like that we all benefit from. And I like this, just like thinking, going back to the basics, forgetting about tokens, forgetting about Web3. Ultimately, it's about pulling together resources from a group of people. And then if you start from there, then you naturally have to think about, okay, like making sure everybody gets something out of it. What I don't want is to end up in a situation where I'm selling an NFT and I'm saying like, oh yeah, like there's like a community where like we're gonna like do some sort of thing, and it's just empty, like there's no real value and people buy it purely for speculation. At that point, it gets too close to what I think is a pyramid scheme and less of like a real organization. Not to like shit on people who do that, but that's just not what the point of this is. So given that, that being the foundation on the intellectually for like how to think of it, since this is a book, not everybody who is, I'd like to think of it as, okay, this is a group of people who want, for whatever reason, a picture book explaining crypto. And then maybe the next book is a picture book explaining DAOs. Maybe they want to explain it to their kids. Maybe they want to explain it to their relatives, but they want this to exist, and it doesn't currently exist. So I'm thinking of it as everyone is going to now pool their resources, so like their money. I don't know how much this membership is going to cost, but just say like we had like 1,000 people. I don't think we will have 1,000 people, but like 1,000 people gave like $100 each. We'd have $100,000. You could commission like a lot of books, and then like you would then get to have the rights to those books. And you might want to put some structure around it so that one member isn't like capitalizing off of it more than others, but maybe so that everybody has the right to read and share, or stuff like that. So that's the way I'm thinking about it, where as opposed to like I've created something and I'm now selling a membership, but like as if that's not the way that's not the actual linear process of how things happen. But if it were the case that we got like 20 people together or like 100 people together who are like, oh, we all want this to exist and we're willing to put up X amount of money, and in return we'll get and the way I've actually thought about it, I think more explicitly, is that in return they would get access to the book at cost. So if it's a physical book, that's going to be like a little bit more. If it's a digital book, I think Amazon still takes like a download fee, but it's pretty minimal. It's like $1 or something. So they would have access. It's as if they're like owning the book, but collectively. And then we would also, I would have to take out, like, if this book does make money, like the amount that I've paid the illustrator, and then I would also pay myself a little bit. But then after that, I would no longer have like official rights to the book. The DAO would have the rights to the book, but we'd have to figure out, because I think that needs to be a transition period as well, because right now, like, it's purely me, like I've written this, and then of course there's like the illustrator, but she's getting paid. And then I think the traditional model is like I would then try to sell it to people, and then like I do this hoping that I make profit. Whereas in this case, it's more about that's about like that. I think that goes to the question of like decentralization. If I tomorrow got hit by a bus, hopefully that does not happen, but like, will this DAO still survive? And I'm trying to like set up a structure where it's not dependent on me. And for that to happen, I think the content of the book needs to shift from like I own this book. I still want to be a member of the DAO. I'm probably like a very important member of the DAO, but like it's more about like the DAO too, so that if at any point someone else is like, oh, okay, like the next book, maybe it'll be written by someone else, and then, or we can just hire someone to do it, but the DAO owns.
Are you thinking to sell these NFTs? Is that is right? Is it going to be an NFT or tokens?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Let's just, for argument's sake, say it's an NFT. You sell an NFT for $100. Let's say 100 people end up buying it. $100. Would you do that after the book has gone live and has been published, or are you sort of thinking of raising capital before the book gets published to support you in that publishing effort?
I think it would make sense to have the book available for purchase if you just wanted to spend like $10 or under to get a book, and you don't want to become like a DAO member. But then I also think that the profits of that, part of that should go to the DAO. And then if you're like a DAO member, you would then have voting rights over what percentage of like what we have some costs for having the book being created. And right now, like I'm fronting those costs, but after saying, I don't even know if like the book sales will make any money, but if it does, I'd like to like recover those costs. And then on top of that, that's the margin, right? Our profit margin. So I would like for the DAO to have the ability to vote on what percent of a profit margin we should take from other people who are buying it. And once we have that profit margin, what percent we should save for, future projects, and what percent should be maybe distributed back. I don't know how we could do that yet, but I think we could.
I guess I'm just thinking about sort of the value of buying an NFT. You're going to be saying, okay, who wants to buy into the DAO, become a member? What do I get as a DAO member? I think you're going to have to be very, very clear and specific on what that looks like. Because if you sort of vaguely say, well, you get access to the book and you might get dividends, or you might
Yeah.
not. Like that's just going to put people off, not knowing
Yeah.
exactly what they're buying into.
Yeah. It might even make sense to, I don't know, like it could make sense to just try to release the book, and then if the book has like no traction, then like maybe we don't even try to do the NFT and like the DAO, because then we kind of like save people like the time and energy. But at the same time, like maybe the book wouldn't get traction unless we had like members who are like committed to the
Right.
So
Yeah.
I want this to be an experiment for will a DAO work. So it's more important, I think, to try to make it work as opposed to like, oh, let's just try to sell a book, and if it doesn't work, we'll just like quit. So now that we've talked it through, I think I need a plan so that the NFT or whatever goes out first.
Yeah.
The unclear but like high level structure of the membership is that the members, like the DAO, the people collectively own the rights to the book. They would vote on how the book is done down the line, and but I think we need to put like I think we need to make sure that like unless we got like X number of people, like this isn't going to happen, and then we just like refund everyone their money, because like if we only got like 2 people to give us like to buy the NFT, those 2 people should not own the rights to the book. Then we just like try a different model. But like some minimum number of like members, like starting members, they would have the rights to the book. They would have the rights to the profits of the book after like the expenses have been paid. And then they could then decide, okay, like we don't want to make another book. We just want to like split up the profits and then like move on. In which case, like I hope that doesn't happen, because I don't really think they'll get like a lot of, I don't really think this is like a sound investment if you're just looking for like a profit. It's more like, okay, now like, or hopefully they'll be like, okay, we want, at the end of the book, there's a lead into explaining how DAOs work. So maybe they're like, we want to commission a book now explaining DAOs, and maybe they'll want to work with the same illustrator. Maybe I don't know if I have time to like write it myself, but I'm sure you could find someone, right? Maybe another DAO member. Maybe they collect, I don't know, but like the DAO would now start to like vote on things and have the right to decide all of that. But primarily profits belong to the DAO. And if there was like a majority or however way we do it, they're like, we don't want to do anything. They can just like split the money themselves. But ideally they'd vote on, okay, we'll retain X amount in the treasury for unforeseen things or for publishing costs or marketing costs, and we'll approve this amount of money to commission this book, this next book, or maybe they're like, oh, we want to do merchandising. So I'm slowly trying to push away from just me to like, here's now like a group of people.
Totally.
But I don't have like the details, but I hope that's like clear enough that ultimately like what you get with the membership is like a part of like the rights to the book and the rights to decide what to do in the future, whether with these characters or with the book itself or other books.
So any important decisions made or problems solved? Anything particular that comes to mind?
I mean, other than that, not really. I think that was an important decision, just that this isn't going to be something where I know there are a lot of other versions where like maybe the NFTs are like characters, and then like I just didn't want to go down like that much of a path, and I wanted to really focus this on the whole point of this whole series for me was to see one, like at the very least, the goal was to just have a book done. So even if the DAO itself doesn't work, I still think that's like a contribution to like Web3 and the community. So it's still worthwhile. And then 2, it was to just see if can we run like a business collectively. So I think deciding that I wasn't going to do some sort of like more complicated NFT like structure with like, like free mints, and we're gonna be a community. It's gonna be like big. It's not really a community. I mean, I hope there's a community aspect, but it's like, no, we've come together for a common purpose, which is to make money because we like crypto stuff and we want to explain it to more people. But like making money is clear because it's a business. So having said that, I don't know tokenomics, if it's going to be a token, if it's going to be an NFT, but I think that was the main decision, just that you're going to have to pay money to become a member. but you also had the rights to the profits.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. Okay, so and then struggles. You mentioned being extremely busy at the
Just
moment.
busy.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you did say last week you're finding it very hard to juggle this on the side because this is just a side project. This is not your full-time gig, and I'm sensing that that's still an issue.
Yes. And I think that, it was good though that I have this like very structured environment. I think I would recommend to people watching if they want to start something to also, I don't know, like I don't know what works for other people, but if I weren't doing this and I'm doing like my next project, I'm learning about myself that I need another person to keep me accountable so that um one of many things could happen. One, like I tend to get very, you can probably tell from the videos, like over intellectualize things. So like if I didn't have this call today, I could have been spending months like researching tokenomics of other DAOs, researching NFT projects. I did like a good amount of research that I could do in like a 2-week period for like a side project. And now I have like not a perfect, but like a hypotheses for what's going to work, but I'm not going to learn so much more just trying to implement that hypotheses, even though it's not perfect, even though I don't feel like I'm an expert on like the tokenomics of DAOs or NFT projects. So for me, like having that accountability forces me to be like, okay, this is like good enough, or this is like what I could do in this 2-week period of time. Whereas if there was no one keeping me accountable, I could spend months, in just this stage. And like my brain could come up with a million reasons why it wouldn't work, and why I'm too busy, and why like I want to do like the project justice, so I'm gonna wait for like a better time or like a better thing. So, even when this series is over, I'm realizing that I need like an accountability person. So I'm gonna be starting to structure my life in more like project-based things where I
Nice.
commit to like a short period of time and just see what happens.
Yeah, you're on the show now. You can't pull the plug, so I'm afraid I'm going to hold you accountable till the end of the
Yes.
series.
Yes, I need that.
You're not going anywhere. Okay, so accountability, that's what you learned. Anything else that you sort of struggled with apart from time management?
I mean, kind of we've touched on it, but it's just like the intellectually, it is the balance between decentralization and chaos, and it's also hard to like emotionally, like I wrote this book, and there's like a sense of ownership around it, because if there isn't, like, you wouldn't have any sense of like personal standards around the stuff you create without like an accompanying sense of ownership. So it is like psychologically difficult to be, I want to make sure that it it continues to be like up to those standards. So kind of like recognizing that, okay, I gotta like structure this so that I step back, but at the same time, it's not just like, okay, now I'm done. Like hopefully I just get like the right people to sign up who will like figure it out for me. It's kind of a balance, and it can be really tough because in a company you interview someone and then you make them go through some sort of process to make sure that this is a good fit. And then when they're not a good fit, it's very, very expensive for the company because of, productivity loss, like culture issues, just drama in your mind. So, this is something where like we don't do any of that. I think there still is like a process of recognizing if someone's suitable for a certain job, but it's like not through interviews, it's through like demonstrated ability. So I think that's actually a better process, but it's still tough because there's just a sense of not being able to control everything. So I think that's actually what I've been struggling with the most, because there's like I understand now viscerally why like Web2 exists, why like existing companies exist. Is because like leaving aside like the technological advances that have made this more possible, it's just hard. It's like so much easier for me to be like, hey, like I know someone and I'm going to ask that person to like lay out the book, or I'm going to like go find a company who has proven. It's just like less risk. It's psychologically, I think it's almost more natural. I don't know. I don't want to argue that. I don't want to argue that it's more natural, but because it could be because this is just an environment that we've all grown up in. But it's like, it's actually kind of counterintuitive. Like doing things the DAO way is like, there's like a tension there. And anyway, I haven't been very clear, but to summarize, it's like finding the balance between decentralizing something, but not doing it too much, and then like not having something be of a certain quality or standard, or it just becoming chaos.
Okay, well, let's get on to Colony and what you've been doing on the platform this week. Have you thought more about a plan for your early supporters, because you created a little team on Colony and you've been paying these early supporters some tokens? I know it's nice them having tokens, but the tokens don't have any monetary value.
Yeah.
It might never have. So what have you thought of other ways to maybe bring them into the fold, or say thank you, or get them to participate in other ways?
Yes. So I would like to do, so this was actually a suggestion of someone who filled out the form, but I'd like to put on a contest for marketing. So like a marketing prize, and that would be open to everyone, but primarily to early supporters. I don't know how we're going to like tie that in with the tokens that they received. For the marketing competition, you'll get like some number of tokens in that's correlated to like the number of like likes you got, or like reshares or something like that. But then like there will be a grand prize, and then these tokens, if you have enough of them, you'll be able to like convert that into a membership without like having to pay.
Nice.
So that,
yeah, I like
or
that.
like if you don't have enough, but just say like you have some number of tokens, but the token cost to convert into a membership is like a little too much. Like maybe like you can like just pay the difference. So that instead of paying like $100 for your membership, you're only paying like $30 or whatever.
Okay, that's awesome. So you get a massive discount on a membership by having contributed.
Yes, I think that would be the best way to do it, so that we're not just like paying people to fill out a form, but it's more like this can convert to continued, you're an early supporter, so those are the people I want to be members, like more so than anyone else. So but also like maybe combining it with like a marketing competition, so that there's like more, so they can get more tokens, and then we can peg that to the membership price better.
Okay, cool. You mentioned earlier that this is sort of an invitation to anyone who's got experience or skills in laying out the Amazon book for you to get paid in stablecoin as well as tokens.
Yes,
or
stablecoin. Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how much. I would need to see, like, I don't know like what the going rate for stuff like this is. I'm actually going to probably try to find independently of this. I would prefer to have someone who's like wants to be a part of the DAO, because then they get tokens as well as money.
Sure.
But I'm going to also just try to find someone whose job it is to like do that, and just sort of see like how much it would cost for them, because I don't know if anyone watching has specific experience laying out children's books for Amazon. It seems a little bit obscure, but who knows?
What are you planning for the next 2 weeks?
I was literally writing that down just now. So I want to have, next step. I have so much stuff going on now, because for a while I didn't have that much stuff going on. So I was saying yes to everything, and I'm like, oh God. Okay. So next step, marketing competition details. So stay tuned for that. We will get paid in tokens. There will be a grand prize for like the top person, but then if everybody else, you still get paid for like whatever you contribute, because I don't like competitions where it's like only the top person gets stuff, everybody else is just I think anyone, even if you only got like, I don't know if we're going to measure it based on like retweets or number of book links, so I don't know what it is, but even if you only got like one retweet, you should get like a corresponding amount of tokens for that one retweet, because it's really about like the spirit of it, and not, but if you happen to be like, there's also like going to be a grand prize, or maybe like a top 2 or something. So details to be determined. I'm also going to determine the membership structure. So actually it kind of sounds like, now that we've talked it through, I'm going to use an NFT, because there are a lot of like technology benefits of like, you can use like, there's like pre-existing software where you use your NFT to get access to the server, stuff like that. So there will be like a mint price for the NFT, but then if you have a certain amount of tokens, you can convert that to a free membership or like a discounted membership, and it's going to be linearly correlated to the amount of tokens you have. We just have to figure out what number of tokens equals a membership. And I also need to figure out like how much money a membership should be. But I'll probably just like, well, so I'll figure that out. And then I'm also going to be looking for someone experienced with Amazon publishing so that they can publish the book. And hopefully there's someone watching, but I'm not really betting on it just because it is a little obscure. And, you know, hopefully I'll have not the book not published, but a person lined up to do that.
Okay.
And then the illustration's done.
Absolutely. So if we're today's episode 4, we're going to do 7 episodes. So 5, 6, 7. So that's 6 weeks, right? Is there another 6 weeks left? Right.
Yes. So that's actually, you know, for a while it's like, oh, I feel behind, but 6 weeks is like the halfway mark, and this is pretty good for halfway, I think. Like roughly.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the story's written, the illustration's almost done. You're thinking about publishing now. So I think you're on track. You're definitely on track. There's a small chance that it may take Amazon a while to publish. Yeah. So if that happens, I think we'll do one of 2 things or both. We can pause like process on the DAO until that gets, you know, and then like do episode 6 and 7 once that's done, because that's something that like is out of, you know, our control. And we can also look into like a way to self-publish, because it could just be a PDF. That like we could, you know, but I would just want to make sure that we don't just like post the link to a book. Yeah. Okay. I like maybe the first option. Find out how long it will take. Maybe pause, because nothing is getting done within the DAO anyway. It's everyone's sort of sitting around waiting for the publishing to happen. And then we can kick off the last couple of episodes or whatever that might be. Lisa, I don't have any other questions for you. Any questions for me? Any comments?
Yeah. If anybody is watching who has like strong opinions on how NFTs should work, or how like this membership should work, or you've like heard what I described about paying for a membership, or I also think like you can contribute, like if down the line you're like, oh, I want to like write the book, you get paid in real money, but also in tokens, and you just get a membership, you know. But if anyone here has heard what I've said and they're like, I hate this, please DM me and tell me like why you hate it, what you think is like a better option. Please tell me that now before it's too late. So
Exactly. I think there might be a lot of people out there who are screaming, shouting, no, don't do that, do this. This is like the best way of doing it. And if you are that person, and you know what would be the perfect business model for this, please get in touch. They can reach you by sending you a DM on your PictureBookDAO Twitter account, right?
Twitter. Yeah. And you don't have to have the perfect idea either, but you can just be like, hey, like, if you're like, hey, like, I don't like this, I don't want to have to pay to be a part of this DAO, but I still want to like share in the profits, then I might be like, okay, but you know, how does that make sense for a business? But you know, you could just be like, I don't like this aspect of it, or I don't want it to be an NFT. I think you should do it like purely tokens because of blah, blah, blah. You don't have to have a perfect idea, but you can just tell me like what you don't like about it. And then I'll try to come up with a solution for how to, you know, so you don't have to have the perfect plan. Just reach out if you have any thoughts.
Absolutely. Okay. That's fantastic. Okay. Well, Lisa, it was a pleasure speaking to you again, as always. I will see you in a couple of weeks' time. All the best. Good luck with everything that you are going to be doing over the next 2 weeks. And I'll see you soon. Okay.
Okay.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.